It is not known precisely where the angels dwell, whether in the air, the void, or the planets. It has not been God's pleasure that we should be informed of their abode. Voltaire, writer, philosopher. Chapter 4. Lifetime Protection Talisman and Enochian Magic. Before I dive into the next experience, I wanted to mention something that happened after the last encounter with Sal the Eben. I reached out to Lainey about it and explained how forceful and aggressive he was. She suggested that we do a protective spell using Enochian magic, the magic of the angels. I've always been a little witchy by nature, but I never actually employed the use of any real magic, and this was definitely taking me into some unfamiliar territory. At this point, though, the connection to what we call magic or the occult and the ETs has become much more than a casual theme throughout these encounters. Since the beginning, I've been wondering how these two things relate. It would seem that the story of Enoch, his connection to the ETs, and Enochian magic, which derives its name from those stories and that character, reveals that the entire practice of ritual magic itself may fundamentally be an ancient CE5, aka Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which refers to human-initiated contact with ETs. I'll need to sit with this and explore the idea much further, but for now, this is the conclusion that these experiences have led me to, quite unexpectedly. So, Lainey told me that we were going to be creating a lifetime protection talisman. We followed the process as outlined in the book The Sacred Magic of the Angels by David Goddard, in which he details how to create one of these talismans using what is believed to be written angelic language, aka Enochian. I've not read his book, but I trusted Lainey's experience surrounding the efficacy of this spell, so I followed her instructions. At the very least, I thought it couldn't hurt, and I was willing to try almost anything, since I didn't know where to look, where to begin, or who to trust in seeking protection from entities like Sal. I wanted to continue with the contact experiences and whatever this spiritual work was, but I felt increasingly wary about opening myself up to unknown nightly visitors, since one of them had attacked me and essentially cursed me with a spell. And even if I didn't believe in Sal's magical nonsense, he had proven that he could paralyze me at will, and that was not hocus pocus, but a very real power. What Lainey offered me was something practical that I could do for immediate protection, and when solutions like this pop up at just the right time, I tend to take it as a sign. In creating the talisman, the idea is that one writes their name in the angelic language on a reasonably sized piece of paper or card to, quote, invoke and petition the angels for protection. On the back of the paper is a spell or incantation, also written in angelic language, addressing the specific angels whose protection you are requesting. In my case, we invoked Archangel Lumiel and Archangel Sashael. This was a foreign concept to me, having never seen this language before. Somehow it seemed to hold more power being something so strange and unfamiliar. I wondered whether or not this process might play on the placebo effect, using the power of my own mind to help create this protection for myself, or whether it really was an authentic process for contacting angelic entities. I will admit that the skeptic in me felt that it was silly, from a logical standpoint, that I should have to write a message in this weird language in order to communicate to the angels, when everything I've ever been told about angels is that all you have to do is pray and they'll come to your aid. And if I can pray to them, then clearly they understand English and indeed all languages. So why is it necessary for me to jump through all these ritualistic hoops? Even the colors used on both sides of the talisman needed to be exactly as they are. But hey, far be it from me to question the bureaucracy and physics of angelic magic. I was originally under the impression that the Talisman would protect me from all such beings like Sal, but as you'll come to find out, more attacks from other such entities were soon to follow. Still, it was effective in that I haven't seen Sal since. I'm still not sure if this is the best way to approach protecting myself, but when swimming around in these waters, you have to try things, because as a human being, blind to so many other realities, boldly pursuing ET contact, they have you at one hell of a disadvantage. It doesn't take long before you realize you may be quite out of your depth. After taking some time to sit with the idea of invocation and doing some reading on the subject of ritual magic, I discovered something that I never would have considered had I not had these experiences and consequently looked into this area of study. Historically, people like myself who have had encounters with otherworldly beings have done so through the process of invocation. Since these experiences began, I've helplessly floundered around in search of a way to contact them, and now I'm faced with the perplexing conclusion that perhaps the only way to do this is through the practice of Enochian and other forms of ritual magic. For years, I've banged my head against the wall, wishing for a way to reach them, to call them back to visit me, since the whole thing has been so one-sided, where I'm dependent on them for contact, waiting desperately to be sprung from my mundane human existence and taken on another adventure into the unknown. All I've wanted was a way to be able to reach them on my terms, and now that all the signs seem to point to magic and witchcraft as the only viable form of communication, I find myself reluctant and afraid to venture into this practice, which religion and society have conditioned me to shun and fear. Is it a trap? A provocative lure by a very clever fisherman who promises me the secrets of the universe, if only I would just delve into this most forbidden of practices? That's got to be the religious programming talking. On an intellectual level, I find comfort in the perspective presented by Arthur C. Clarke, when he famously said, "Magic is just science we don't understand yet." And when I think about it that way, suddenly it's not so scary, and I'm reminded that staying grounded seems to be the best way to navigate these tempestuous waves. So what is the connection between ETs and magic? Why would it make any sense to reach out to angels for help in dealing with negative ETs? In order to bridge that gap, we need to cross into the area of multidimensional ecology. Which beings exist where? Are angels and demons the same thing as aliens? How do we make sense of all of this in our modern world where these archaic beliefs, while outdated, are the only models we have to understand certain aspects of this phenomena? To be perfectly honest, I wrote an exhaustive chapter on this, but I chose not to include it here. It was so vast and endless. I kept going in circles, trying to articulate the differences and nuances of all the beings and all the dimensions and densities, and I may have done well in my attempt at putting it all together in a way that our linear human minds can grasp. But it was just too big of a beast to tackle. And I may revisit that at some point. But for now, what I need for my own peace of mind and sanity as I integrate everything that these beings have shown me is to stick to sharing the experiences. And once I've done that, maybe I'll have the courage and the strength to share my deepest, most radical beliefs on all of this. Until then, I guess some things are just going to have to be left unexplained.